What's going on, y'all? My name is Chioki Ianson, and I'm your instructor for this section of AFAM 311 African Diaspora Experiences. I think that's what it's called. Welcome to the class. As you have figured out by now, this class mostly takes place on Google Classroom. If you are still having any connectivity issues or any trouble getting into Classroom, please send me an email and let me know. But Classroom is where it's all happening. And here's some other notes about the class. So this class is synchronous, which means that it happens live. That is during the time slot, Thursday from 4 to 6:40. This means that while you're always going to be doing stuff in that time slot, you will get we'll have live conversations sometimes. There'll be prepared, recorded lectures sometimes, kind of like this one. And there'll be other things that happen, like assignments, but they're going to happen in that time slot. Now, on that, continuing with that, let's look at how this class works or how you'll spend your time in the class. So the first thing is, as we said, what happens in the time slot. The second thing is your readings. And your readings are probably going to be a lot, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then, of course, there's your assignments, which you will complete at different times, sometimes in class, and then sometimes outside of class. All right. Now, I will say, and I'm going to repeat this throughout this little presentation here, we should always be working on the reading as a community. So do your best to not do readings and take notes and stuff alone. Try to work with people and talk about the readings as you're reading them. And I think the class will go a lot better if you do that. All right, let's have a look at the syllabus. So let's have here we go. All right, so this is African Diaspora Experiences. I'm Chioki. My office is at 816 West Franklin. I have not been to my office in a long time. It's hard out here, y'all. Google Classroom is what we use to communicate. So have a look around Classroom if you have not already. There is also mobile versions, so it works in your browser, but it also works on the iPhone and on Android. All right. Here are the required texts. So one is Michelle Wright's Becoming Black, and the other is Patrick Manning, The African Diaspora, A History Through Culture. All right, so one thing to note, I think I can give you a copy of that. I don't even know that this book is in print anymore, but what you have to buy is this book right here. So you're gonna have to buy the Patrick Manning book. It's well worth it. It's a great book. It's super dope. All right, let's have a look here at the course description. So this is the official description that you get when you go looking in the course catalog. And this says that the class traces the geography and history of dispersed African peoples from their motherland to all parts of the world. And everything else that's in here is essentially true of this class, but it mostly takes place in the Patrick Manning book. It mostly takes place in this book. And then there's a second component that is going to pop up in this class that we'll talk about in a little bit. Here's what the course format is. It's generally speaking lecture and discussion. So most of the time, what we'll be doing is you'll show up, everybody gets in the little group chat or the video conference, and I'm going to give a lecture that's based on the reading, and then I will ask questions to you, and then you'll ask questions to me, and then we'll ask questions to each other, and then we'll write in our notes and we'll figure it all out. So that's the general idea of how this is going to work. All right. But here's the way that I like to think about the course. So there is the course description, which is true, but then there's the way that I kind of focus on the course and the way that I've developed it. And the way that I look at it is that there's two major objectives for the class. One is to become more knowledgeable about African diasporic history, and the other is to become competent in discussions of identity. Because obviously, if you think about the idea that there is such a thing as an African diaspora, often calls into question or brings up these questions of identity. And one way to think about the history of these people who have traveled from the African continent is how they self-understood through history. And so we're going to be doing some pretty high level theoretical work and thinking about what identity means. And then we'll be applying that theoretical work to these historical tales that we see in Manning's book. Yeah. And one of the things that I always say is that by doing both of these things, we understand the degree to which blackness is weird, which will probably make more sense as we get through the class. All right. So there's a class policy thing here, and there's a lot of stuff here that, I mean, I guess I want to go over it. It's not as much as it used to be because we're not in person anymore, but there's a few things. So the first thing is that, like, if you miss, then the assignments that you miss, you've probably just missed them. There's some language in here about like exam, and that's not really. It's a lot of different assignments now. But if you miss, then like making up is going to be very difficult. So I would advise that you do not miss class. I know that I say that even though the very next line here I say that I don't require attendance. Okay, so that is. I don't know if any of you know about me or the way that I teach or whatever, but here's the general problem or the general issue. So a lot of people can get by. A lot of people can get by in classes by, you know, they're pretty smart or whatever. They catch on, you know, fairly quickly. And because they encounter course material that's often very easy, it takes the form of them not having to work very hard in order to get a pretty good grade in the class. And this kind of reinforces a general cycle of, well, I'm pretty smart, I don't have to work that hard. And then when people encounter a class that actually forces them to do the work that a college education should be forcing them to do the whole time, they find themselves challenged. And it's a shame, but what happens in this class is like the serious stuff. And so if you're used to just kind of like doing the multiple choice, you know, thing and like getting a good grade, or if you're used to like, you know, looking in the back of the book to get like the key words or whatever, and then you do that that's not going to work here at all, like not even a little bit. So if you miss class, if you're not in class, then you will miss the things that make the material make sense or make it intelligible to you in some way. At least one of these books, it's not possible for you to understand it all on your own, unless you're some kind of like literary theory genius and you don't even need to be in this class. So it's just not possible. So if you miss class, then you're putting yourself on the back foot, and you're also going to get behind in assignments and the whole thing. So yeah, I'm not going to be like asking or making sure everybody is here, but if you don't come to class, there's no way you can do okay in the class. All right. Next up, don't ask me what you missed in class. Ask your classmates what you missed in class. That's what Classroom is for. You post on Classroom. Other people see it, they respond, they help you, they share their notes. Once again, this class works best for you if you work as a community, right? Okay. However, if you need help or anything, I'm obviously always available. We can meet pretty much any time because I'm behind a computer. So if you just want to set a meeting, we can set a meeting, and then we can talk. All right. Now, I'm going to be going over a bunch of stuff here before I even really talk about like the stuff in the class, but just kind of bear with me. All right. So this course requires open dialogue. So I'm just reminding everyone that a classroom, even though it's a decentralized classroom and it takes place on the posting board on Google Classroom and sometimes in class and sometimes other stuff, like all of that is true, but it's still this is still a space, quote unquote, where we have these open discussions and we encounter things that maybe are different from our base beliefs, but we have to remember that we are not identical to our beliefs. Like, we hold beliefs, but we are not identical to them. And so it's okay for us to interrogate them and that whole thing. So please read this entire thing as you go through the syllabus, but I think it'll all make sense. All right, now I'm going to start repeating myself even more, but hear me out. I like this class. I like the subject matter. I like talking about it. Sometimes I get loud and ridiculous, and oftentimes, or well, it often happened when we were in person. I'd be like loud, and a student would be like, "Whoa, this is too much. Why are you attacking me?" But I'm not. I'm just like excited. So just please know that that's what's happening. If y'all are like, "Why is Chioki screaming?" It's because I'm excited. Two, we're adults. We're gonna talk about adult things. Just know that. Repeat. This class takes a particular kind of focus. It is often not what you are. For many of you, it's not what you're used to. So if you miss a meeting, if you don't study, you will not do well, right? However, if you don't ask questions, you won't do well. This class is weird in that if you study in the right way, you'll do fine. But if you maybe don't, if you're not taking me seriously right now, for instance, you'll do horrible. And there's not really a whole lot of in between. So I really have to get you on board with the fundamental project of this class and how it works. And so that starts with this description now in the syllabus, but it's also going to continue next week when I meet you in person and give you a lecture. That's literally a lecture on how to study for this class, right? But there's the point here is the one that I want to make, which is that your past history of good grades or bad grades does not predict your performance in this class. Believe that. Believe that. Okay. All right. So as I said, because we're online, there's a lot of weird stuff we're going to do. So we're going to do chapter reviews. We're going to do short reflections. We're going to do like little quizzes sometimes. We're going to do maybe weird assignments. And then probably by the time we get to the end of the semester, there'll be a short paper or two by way of a final kind of a thing. But here's a big one. Our work in here is evaluated via public evaluation. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to post something, a question for you that you will answer on Classroom. And then after it's posted, it will become public for all students to see. And then when we evaluate it, like that is when I grade it, I'm going to grade it in class with you so that we can all see what's going on. I find that public evaluation is an excellent way to figure out and learn lessons from other people, right? So it's like if I just give you feedback on your thing, then all that you can tell is like what I thought about that thing, about the one thing that you wrote. But if you see everybody else's feedback, then the stuff that you learn expands so far because there are things that you thought up that another person didn't think of, and they had a different approach. Or maybe they had an answer that answered it, but it was like this weird kind of like sideways thing. And it's good for you to know that because then you can take those skills or those approaches and then you can absorb them into your own study. So I think that public evaluation is super dope. I think that like people are like a little bit kind of squeamish about it, like it at first, but then by the time we've done it, by the end of the semester, students actually love it because they never had that opportunity to see how other people responded to something and then how I in turn responded to them. So I think it'll be dope. All right, so let's have a look at the schedule here. The thing to note about the schedule is that the schedule will change. The important thing is getting through the ideas. And so sometimes that means that we'll get to a chapter and we might be on that chapter for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows? We might be there for a while, but it doesn't matter because what matters is that we're doing the work. And then I think that brings me to, you can look through, it's actually very simple because it's basically just 2 books, right? But it will change. So don't think that this is what it is, but it will change. But the key here and the important thing about my class is that it does ask you to study and learn the history. However, the more important aspect is that it also asks you to develop your reflective process. And the only way to develop your reflective process is to lay it out, is to share it with me, is to show us all what you're up to. So there will be questions, especially for the right book. It's the right book that's the problem book here, like the one that's going to be hard to get through. I'll ask questions about it, and y'all's answers are going to be way different. But it's possible for there to be 30 different ways to answer a question and for them all to be right, because the process of reflection, as evidenced in the answer, is good, right? So the thing that I'm going to be looking for, or that I'm going to be trying to develop over the course of the entire semester, is your critical capacity and the way that you do work, and crucially, the way that you absorb and think about theory. That's the big one. And if you can get that, then getting the history stuff is going to be like pretty easy. Although I will note that even history is done from a theoretical perspective. Okay. I think that's all that I want to say. I understand that the last day for ad drop is Monday, and so we'll really be able to get down to business on Tuesday, when everybody who was in the class is definitely going to be in the class. So I guess that what I'll say now is, well, I'll post the book in Classroom, and then you can have a look at it. And I think it'd be good for you to read through the first couple chapters so you can like see what's happening, because I want you to be like well informed with regard to your decision to stay in the class. So read the first couple chapters of the right book, which I will post for you. And then if you have any questions at all, just post the questions on the post that has this video in Google Classroom, and I'll answer your questions. And I look forward to really seriously getting down to business next week on Thursday. All right, I'll see you.